What's going on, boys and girls? Yeah, set the record straight. What's up, brother? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, this is Alexander, obviously, so we start these things off. So, diet. Let's talk diet. So, I was discussing this. I discussed this yesterday in my webinar. I drive with one hand. I discussed this yesterday in my webinar. I'm going to discuss it now in a condensed version. When it comes to diet, when it comes to food, when it comes to diet, I will definitely preface that there is a lot of bad information out there, and nutrition science is filled with ideology. It is filled with people's bias and agendas, and it is very hard to distinguish what is true, or at least what is accurate, and what is misleading. And you must also account for the fact that with all of this, there's also the internal human bias, where we like to divide things into A and B categories, A and B thinking, and we want there to be an absolute yes and absolute no. And nutrition is not so simple. Now, there are foundational nutritional needs. Your body needs fat. Your body needs protein. Your body needs those macronutrients / molecules, because that is quite literally what your body is made out of. So, your body's made of protein. Your body's made of fat. Your body's cells are made from triglycerides, from fatty acids. You need these things to make yourself with. Your body is adapted to use carbohydrates for energy. And for some people, they are more adapted for this. For some people, they are less adapted, or we could argue less evolved. The carbohydrate question is always a bit of a question. Some people do very well with high carbohydrate diets, some do not. So you have these basic nutritional needs. You also have micronutrient needs. So aside from carbohydrates and protein and fat, you need vitamins, you need minerals, you need vitamin K, you need vitamin B, you need vitamin A, you need vitamin C. You need all of these various micronutrients for your body to function properly or optimally or healthily, however you want to say it. So you have these needs that you must fulfill. Now, with this said, you should account for the fact, and this is, I would consider fairly inarguable, that for the majority of human history, or at least for a long time in human history, going back, let's say 100,000 years, 200,000 years, human beings ate what you would call a whole food diet. And this term confuses people. These people ask me, what do you mean by whole foods? Is pasta whole food? No. A whole food diet is a diet, actually I don't even want to call it a diet. A whole food diet is a way of eating in which you are eating foods in their natural form, or as close to their natural form as possible. And you can make semantic arguments against this, that we've been breeding livestock for thousands of years and that's not natural. You can make an argument that fruits and vegetables are not natural because we've genetically bred them for thousands of years through cross-pollination, various methods to make them produce more. You could go with a natural argument there, but it would be something of a fallacious argument, I think. Yeah, I'm acknowledging the naturalistic fallacy. But a whole food diet is essentially a diet in which you are eating foods in as close a form to their natural form as possible. You are taking a chicken, slaughtering it, plucking it, and you are cooking that whole chicken. You are taking a cow, you are obviously slaughtering the cow, you are eating off slices of meat. You are taking, let's say, vegetables, you're digging potatoes out of the ground, and then you're eating those potatoes because you baked them in some fashion. And obviously we don't do the foraging part today. Most of us are not slaughtering our own animals. But you get the concept, hopefully, that eating a whole food diet, you're eating foods in their natural form. Now, what happened so many thousands of years ago with the agricultural revolution is that you had the ability, by growing grains, particularly, largely grains, you had the ability by growing grains to feed large numbers of people at once. And grains are less nutritious than regular, well, not, I'll say regular, grains are less nutritious than, let's say, meat. Or they are less nutritious than, let's say, a more fat-focused, protein-focused diet. And there are, I will fully acknowledge there are arguments against this. Vegans, vegetarians will argue against this. They will argue that people have been eating grains for thousands of years, people have been eating plants for thousands of years. And they would make some fair points, but it is biological, archaeological record that post-agricultural revolution, people did get shorter, bones got more brittle, populations got smaller in stature. Again, that's fairly, I would consider, inarguable. When you're digging up skeletons, and I'm going to be very generic here, when the skeletons in 50,000 BC are 6 feet tall, and you can assess bones to distinguish, you can assess bones to find out what diet was. You can assess bones. You can assess, obviously the biological or archaeological evidence to figure out what people ate. When you're digging into those things and assessing them, and you can see that people, okay, this group of people ate a high-fat, high-protein diet, and then you look, let's just say, so many thousands of years later, and you're looking at people where they've got worn-down teeth and they have cavities, and they ate a grain-based diet, and they're smaller, they're weaker. That tells you something. That tells you something. And in a primal situation, which again, this could be a naturalistic fallacy, this could be being a meathead and overly reductionist. In a natural, primal situation, if I give a population of people a choice in regards to nutrition between subsisting on grain, subsisting on rice, subsisting on bread, versus subsisting upon animals, the meat is going to be the more nutritious, because meat is more concentrated. Meat contains a higher percentage, a higher amount of nutrients, because energy becomes more concentrated the higher you go up the hierarchy. That's true. That's true. That's basic biology. That's basic biology. So, all these things said, a whole food diet. Why do I say it's a diet that you can't get fat on? If you are eating a whole food diet, where you are eating meat in its natural form, where you're not deep frying it, you're not processing it, I don't mean a McDonald's hamburger, you're eating meat, you're eating a steak, you're eating meat on the bone, you're eating a whole food diet where you're eating potatoes, let us say. You're eating something along the lines of that you are having vegetables. Perhaps you're having some fruit. If you are eating this type of diet, it is, I would consider, not impossible, but as close to impossible as possible to become overweight, because the food, it's too satiating, it's too high in nutrition, and it's simply too hard, it's too difficult to overeat it, because it gets you too full. Someone online earlier said to the effect of, well, and you could binge out on steak and eggs. No, but you need to really distinguish where you're talking about with binging. Could you eat a bunch of steak and eggs at once? Sure you could. You could have 60 ounces of steak and 8 eggs, and that's a lot of calories. Can you do that multiple times a day? I would dare you to. And I would say, I would make the probable estimation, you're probably going to be unsuccessful. Why would you be unsuccessful? Because when you have 2,000 calories at once of, let us say, meat, protein, fat in its, as I said, natural form, that's highly, highly, highly filling. When people think of binging, yes, like I said, you can eat a lot of a natural food at one time. You can't do that repeatedly. In contrast, to use a simplistic example, you could drive through McDonald's in the morning and get some Egg McMuffins. You could drive through Wendy's in the afternoon and get, like a Wendy's, burger and fries. You could go out later for dinner, pizza, and you could gorge on that pizza. And you can very readily overconsume those calories, because those foods are designed to not be satiating. In processed foods and modern foods, and I mean stuff that comes out of a can, I mean stuff that comes out of a box, I mean fast food, these things are all engineered, literally engineered, for you not to get full eating them. They are engineered for you to want more of them. They are engineered so that your brain doesn't recognize and imprint the taste memory, and it keeps craving it. Empty calories. Yeah, they are literally empty calories. They might provide fuel in the sense of, yes, they provide caloric energy, but are these very nutrifying foods? No, they're not. And they're very easy to overeat. They're very easy to overeat. I've worked with clients for 9 years. So if there are it's like people with having carbs. No, my theory is universal, because I'm not telling you, again, carbohydrates. What do you think carbohydrates are? Fruit is a carbohydrate. Rice is a carbohydrate. Potatoes are a carbohydrate. Those are whole foods. Multi-grain, gluten-free pasta is not really a whole food, obviously. That's very processed. So, my theory, so to speak, I don't consider it a theory. I would consider this general assessment, sensibility, and system. Carbohydrates can be whole foods. Same thing for people who criticize fruit. That's a very common criticism that, fruit has sugar in it. Yeah, fruit does have sugar in it. That is true. It has fructose. Have you ever tried to binge out fruit? Try eating a whole bushel of apples at once, and then eat another bushel of apples 3 hours later. Again, you can't do it. It's too filling. Same thing with potatoes. Same thing with potatoes. Let's say, mashed potatoes often get demonized. Oh my God, it's a carb. Eat a pound of mashed potatoes. Do that 5 times a day. Try. It's difficult. You might be able to pull it off, maybe, but it's difficult. Why? Because potatoes are very satiating. Sugar spikes not as high with fiber. Yeah, exactly. Because when foods are in their whole form, the digestive processing for them is vastly different than if they're processed food. I can only eat 2 apples. Yeah, the apples are always a good example. That's why people criticize. Yeah, I've gotten criticized that you recommend fruit is sugar, fruit isn't paleo. The tautological semantic bullshit, it gets very distracting. It's getting away from the message. I think too much fruit can fuck with your blood sugar, which messes with the cravings. Fruit can do that. Fruit can. That's the thing. It's one of those things that you kind of, it works in theory. I'm agreeing, not agreeing. Fruit does, you could say, yes, it definitely can raise blood sugar. It definitely has sugar in it. I've never known any healthy people who eat a lot of fruit and are also very overweight. In 9 years of clients, I've not seen that happen. I've worked with lots of overweight individuals. I've met people where they don't like fruit because it makes them tired. I personally don't eat a lot of fruit because I'm not really a sugar person that way. But as in regards to people where they consume lots and lots and lots of fruit, they're usually normal body weight people, or at least certainly not obese. For people where it's fruit can be raising blood sugar. Yeah, it could, but again, relative to most people's actual dietary habits, it's one of those things that it sounds sensible in theory, but then you actually go to work with people that are overweight. I've never had an overweight client where the fruit intake is what got them fat. It was their processed food intake that always got them fat. How about milk and dairy? Milk and dairy is questionable. Milk and dairy is questionable. Some people, this depends very much upon ethnicity. If you are Northern European Caucasian, you might digest dairy very, very well. If you're not Northern European Caucasian, you might digest dairy very poorly. Many adults do not digest dairy well at all, and they don't realize it. And as they don't realize it, and they keep consuming dairy, and they're not realizing that it's contributing to their inflammation. They're not realizing that it's contributing to their bad skin. They're not realizing that it's contributing to their poor gut health. The problem with Joel Peterson is that cutting out food isn't something just triggers. I'm not sure what you're referring to. So in regards to dairy, that comes down to personal experimentation. If you digest dairy well and it's non-inflammatory, by all means eat dairy. Carnivores hate on carbs. Anything wrong with high carb diet? Potatoes and rice and steak. Yeah, there's nothing wrong inherently with a high carb diet. This is where it's very dependent, guys, upon lifestyle and context. This is why I don't advocate a one-size-fits-all approach. Yeah, everyone's going to be a bit different based upon your activity levels, based upon your body composition, based upon your genetics, based upon what you like to eat. A whole food diet can mean a lot of things. That can mean a lot of things. That's a lot of foods, obviously. It's a lot of foods. The oftentimes classical example that gets used: how do you gain weight fast with food? If you're trying to gain weight fast, you want to eat foods where they digest quickly and you don't fill up on them. Carbs are activity dependent. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Carbs are activity dependent. Michaela Peterson advocates against the system. I only eat steak. Steak is very, very high in micronutrients, and she eats a lot of meat. And red meat is very high in micronutrients. So I think that I've never heard her say that you don't need micronutrients. I think more so her point that I've heard her make is that you can get very sufficient micronutrients from a carnivorous diet. You also have to keep in mind, guys, Michaela Peterson, she has a massive number of food allergies, and she has found a way that works for her. And her encouragement to people is to experiment with diet and find something that works for them and puts them in optimal health. Her gut bacteria fiber is not essential. Fiber is not essential. Fiber is not essential at all. That's a big health myth. Big health myth. You cannot have, when you have the fact that we have people today who are eating a carnivorous diet with zero carbohydrates and they are in essentially optimal metabolic health. You have to throw out these statements. Well, you need carbs. No, you don't need carbs. That doesn't mean that you don't need carbs, or everybody doesn't eat carbs. But clearly, there are people that can operate just fine without carbs. The fact that her gut health improved when she stopped eating fiber, that's completely throws the argument that you need fiber on its head. Completely throws it on its head. You can't make that case. You can't. You could say that some people benefit from fiber, but you can't say that people need fiber. Can you talk more about fiber? Yeah, well, with fiber, so plant fiber, it's basically it's plant cellulose. It doesn't digest. It used to be the nutritional dogma was that you need fiber for a healthy gut, that you need fiber, that people eat more fiber are healthier in general. That's kind of been upended the last so many years. Simply because, one, you have people that eat a low-carb diet, or you have people that eat low-fiber diets, let's say like high-protein, high-fat, almost ketogenic diets, and their digestion improves. And then obviously you have these people that are carnivorous, where they're eating literally a pure red meat diet, and they are having the best bowel movements of their life. They are healthier, their digestion is healthier, their body is healthier, their metabolism is healthier. So it's almost not n equals 1. It's how should I say? It's n defying infinity. If you have a population of people, if you make a universal statement and say that every human being needs fiber, that was the journal recommendation for a long time. People need fiber. But then you have a carnivorous population that has better digestive health than your fiber-eating population, you really need to check the premises of what you are believing about fiber intake being essential. And that's essentially what has happened in nutritional science. So relative to fiber, I don't recommend people ingest fiber. I also recommend I don't recommend against it, and I don't recommend for it. Again, that comes down to personal preference, and that comes down to experimentation. If you really feel like you need fiber in your diet, and you have better bowel movements, and it helps your digestion, then yeah, have all the fiber you want. If you're someone where you feel like it just gives you diarrhea, you have loose stool, your stomach's always grumbling from all the fiber, then don't have the fiber. How do you cope with feeling hungry all the time like carnivorous diet? The people that follow carnivorous diet don't seem to have a hunger issue, so I'm not really sure what you're referring to, unless it just didn't work for you. Unclear skin, torso and backside, but yeah. If you're constantly breaking out, that is a sign that your diet and your hormones are out of whack. You definitely need to fix that. Yeah, you need to reconsider what you're eating, whether you're having inflammatory foods, what it is in your diet and your ingestion, that's causing that. Michaela, guys, I don't listen to everything Michaela says, so you're asking me questions. I don't know what I'm not going to ask questions. I'm not going to answer questions about an interview that I haven't heard. Period. What do you think about this person's words that I'm quoting from a thing that you haven't heard? I'm not doing that. I have no idea what I like. Michaela, I've read a lot of her stuff. I don't listen to all of her interviews. I'm not going to comment on her words without hearing them. So, I gotta go, guys. Good talk. Love you all. Hope you all learned something. Talk to you all again.